The Balkans. In this one, I'm going to be focusing on what would happen if the Balkan Federation was formed. And for those that don't know what the Balkan Federation is, essentially it's an idea where almost all of the Balkan nations united in a single state. Just like this one. That was a great idea. No, but this one's different because this one also includes even more states than what was in Yugoslavia, so this has to be bigger and better, right? Balkans never ever change. Now, this idea actually came all the way back from when the Ottoman Empire was declining in the 1860s, and all the Balkan states were first experiencing statehood and nationhood. In this context, it kind of makes sense for a Balkan federation to form. The Balkans are some of the most fragmented and smallest states in Europe, and would make sense if they were all united, particularly if they were surrounded by the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires, as well as Italy, who was always trying to take parts of the Balkans away. So, if all the Balkan states were united, then there would be a potential for them to be a power within European affairs. The Balkan Federation can take a few different forms. For the sake of the video not being 2 hours long, I'm going to choose, in my opinion, the most likely scenario which the Balkan Federation could have taken place. I hope you guys enjoy, so strap in and let Tito guide you to the peak. So the most likely scenario of this federation forming is after World War II in 1948, where Yugoslavia and Bulgaria signed the Bled Agreement in 1947 and moved to unify the countries at some point in the future. This scenario is the most likely as it was actually supported by Tito and initially Stalin before their split, and was the closest time in history where the Balkan Federation nearly formed. In this alternate timeline, the Tito-Stalin split doesn't happen, so let's say that Stalin has a heart attack and dies in 1947 and is replaced by Khrushchev, who, while not a supporter of Stalin, allows Yugoslavia to have hegemonic control of the Balkans as long as they remain an ally of the Soviet Union, and Bulgaria is not sidelined and forced to renege on the Bled Agreement. Let's say that in 1948, the PR of Bulgaria is dissolved and becomes the 7th Republic of Yugoslavia. Similarly, Albania also becomes the 8th Republic in the same year. This was also very close to really happening in 1948, if the split between Yugoslavia and the USSR doesn't happen. Anyway, now we have a Giga Yugoslavia in the region with a combined population of Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and Albania. You might notice some internal map changes with the republics after joining the Balkan Federation. As prerequisites for both Albania and Bulgaria joining, Albania wanted Kosovo as part of its republic, and Bulgaria wanted Pirin Macedonia within Bulgaria as a condition for them also joining. This is not me making this up, by the way. Tito was willing to do this before he split with Stalin. Anyway, the final map of Yugoslavia after all its integration in 1949 is this. So the capital city in this timeline remains in Belgrade, which has a population of roughly 415,000 in 1948. The total GDP per capita in the new state is 1300 USD, and the total population just sits at over 24 million. So it is one of the more poorer countries in the Eastern Bloc, along with Romania. Tito remains the head of state until his death in 1980, just like in our timeline. So what does this mean now that the country is united in 1948? Immediately, the Greek Civil War continues in our timeline, except Tito has a much more active role now as he receives full blessings from the Soviet Union and Khrushchev to provide full military support to the Greek communists. However, the integration of Bulgaria and Albania into the new Yugoslav state happens in 1948, and this takes some time to reorganize and remilitarize their country. So I still think that Greece, particularly with funding from the US and the UK, ends up having the civil war, but it goes the same way as our timeline, except it may last a little longer. Also, now that Yugoslavia is annexing countries left and right, literally, there is more of a foreign policy by Western countries to contain Yugoslavia's expansionist policies, and the issue of Trieste also makes Britain and the US wary of Tito's expansion. At this point, Yugoslavia emerges within Europe as a fairly respected power and is more closely allied with the Soviet Union as there is no Tito-Stalin split. As an alternative, Tito and Khrushchev, instead of signing the Belgrade Declaration in 1955 in our timeline, still exercise friendly relations, and Yugoslavia remains more cooperative with the Soviet Union. Uprisings in Hungary and Czechoslovakia still occur in this timeline, but within this new Yugoslavia, Tito's communists are still popular and viewed as having legitimacy due to them liberating the country during World War II. Bulgaria and Croatia are the two republics within the Federation that cause the most dissent, as many within these republics view themselves as being dominated by the Serbs. GDP per capita steadily grows, and the country remains a strong member of the Warsaw Pact and a participant of the Comecon. So you might be wondering what the other relations were with neighbouring countries such as Romania and Greece. Relations with other communist nations remained pretty positive, with Hungary and Romania being strong trade partners. Romania and Hungary, however, are much more involved with the USSR and are viewed within their sphere of influence. Whilst Romania was historically involved in the Balkan Federation projects during the time of the Ottoman Empire, by this point they've been recognised as being non-Slavic and powerful enough to retain their own nation state. There are stronger ties with the USSR in our original timeline, and Yugoslavia does not stray as much towards a third world and non-aligned movement as it does in our timeline. Relations with countries that aren't communist, however, are much more frostier. Greece has terrible relations with Yugoslavia in this timeline, as now they are more cautious of their stronger and more populated neighbour, and their complicit aid of the communists during the civil war is in recent memory. Turkey is also prone to being wary of communist expansion and militarizes its Thrace region much more securely. Italy in this timeline still loses its territories that are lost at the end of World War II, and Austria is viewed with contempt. Alright, so now the meltdown all the keyboard warriors and hyper-nationalists have been waiting for. The breakup of the Balkan Federation happens in the same way as Yugoslavia. Tito dies in 1980, and immediately the republics get pulled into disarray. The economy is not doing great. There are riots and dissent in Croatia, Albania, Bulgaria, and Slovenia. The standard of living has stagnated for some time, and there are shortages of materials in many of the republics. Reforming the nation seems difficult, as there is little that unites the nation besides the ideals of communism and Tito. The USSR also collapses in this timeline, and now Yugoslavia is up next. Ultimately, Slovenia is the first nation to declare its independence, as it does in our timeline. However, the second nation to secede from Yugoslavia is Bulgaria, which happens in late 1991. Because there is a relatively little Serbian population within Bulgaria, the secession is one which is met with a minor border conflict. However, there is conflict over the Macedonia region. The Bosnia War remains, as there is a Serbian minority that is present in Bosnia, and this war remains the same as in our timeline roughly. However, because Croatia, Bosnia, Albania and Bulgaria all declare their independence within a 1-year time frame, Yugoslavia cannot fight them all effectively at once, so instead they focus on conflicts where there is a sizable Serb population, which is similar to what happened in our timeline. So the two primary conflicts, as you can probably tell by looking at the map, include Bosnia and the one in Albania and Kosovo. Some things just don't change even in alternate history. Because Albania declares independence within a few months of Bosnia doing so, the conflict primarily focuses on Kosovo, Bosnia and minor border conflicts with Bulgaria and Croatia. As the conflicts happen at once, there is a window of time for Yugoslavia to re-annex some of the lands that are historically significant or hold significant Serbian populations before the international community or NATO intervenes. Kosovo is largely divided between the new Albanian state and Yugoslavia among ethnic lines, and they have an eventual population exchange, and Bosnia remains roughly similar to our timeline, except these wars all conclude by 1996. Croatia also retains the same borders as our timeline. Macedonia is largely brought under Bulgarian hegemony, although it remains independent. By the year 2000, the region has stabilized. So, all in all, it ends in another Balkan War, and I hope that I haven't started another one with this YouTube video. Leave the comment section alone, guys. Side note though, this is just a what if video. Don't take it too harshly if your hometown is annexed by the bad guys. So, a few main differences in this timeline include a much more affluent Albania or Kosovo due to their form of communism not crippling their economy as badly as our timeline under this bad boy. Croatia and Slovenia are relatively unaffected in this timeline. Bulgaria has received a larger chunk of Macedonia and is slightly wealthier in GDP. Serbia retains the majority of Kosovo in this timeline, and depending on whether it remains with Montenegro, can still retain its access to the Adriatic Sea. Bosnia remains divided internally due to its diverse makeup, possibly having the same structure as it has in our timeline. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. It took me ages to make. If you liked the video, slap a like on it, sip on some rakia, share it around. Peace out, guys, and please, once again, don't flame each other or myself in the comments. I tried to analyze this in the most feasible and realistic way possible. Peace out, and I'll see you boys in the next one.